The Princess and the Human, Chapter 39, What's that supposed to mean, cancelled? Kikla shouted at the screen in front of her. It means that Her Highness sends her apologies. The Vannery on the other end of the call answered calmly, but that she will not be able to see you in the following days. Days? Have your people lost all sense of etiquette? First the maid you gave me disappears, without a trace, and now this. I already was so considerate to grant Her Highness a day of rest to recover, and now you are telling me that the talks are suspended indefinitely? Yet you refuse to give me a reason? I deeply apologize, Lady Ambassador, the Venari answered with a bow, but I've told you all the information I myself was given. How long are you planning to keep me on your planet? If the princess is not available for whatever reason, let me talk with the queen or king. You can't just expect me to sit here idly without even knowing how long I am supposed to wait. I understand that you are upset, milady, but as I said, that is all I am able to share with you. Then give me someone who can. If by tomorrow I don't have either an appointment with somebody else or at least a reason why the talks are suspended, I will claim delay. I will impart your concerns, milady. Is there something else I can help you with? Kikla ended the call without answering. She then took off her translator and with it, her fake anger. That was no ordinary servant, was it? She asked her handyman. Going by the mannerisms at least, yes, Kilo affirmed, if memory serves right, that should have been the Star Palace's steward. I see. Interesting that they refused to tell us what happened. An attack on the princess would after all be a decent reason to interrupt the negotiations. She stood up and started to pace around the room. It's a bit annoying that we don't know whether or not she is dead. If Kayla's last report is to be believed, she should be, Kilo continued her thought. And by the time I placed her corpse and the message, it should have already been too late, even if she was found immediately. Then we just need to be patient, the Taistri matriarch concluded with a nod, and make sure not to raise any suspicion. Were you able to arrange a hospital visit with the prince? While the primary reason for killing the princess was to stop her from uncovering the Taistri's poverty, the added benefit was that now, her brother was the sole heir to the throne. And since he was still a child, it would be easy to influence him into being a more beneficial ruler. At least more beneficial to the Taistri. And while she didn't know how he had ended up in the hospital, it was the perfect excuse to finally talk to him. Unfortunately, he got transferred to the capital yesterday, of course. Well, try and arrange the visit anyway. It's not like we got anything else to do until the announcement. It'll probably take them a few days to clear up the disarray, and then we'll know whether the attack succeeded or not. Very well, he said with a bow. But, just to be sure, we should make plans for the case that she somehow is still alive. Kikla nodded, you're right. Well, even if she survived, she'll be out for a while. Either they don't let us talk to the queen or king. Then I'll claim delay, or they let us, then I'll claim insult at the first chance. In both cases, we'll get concessions that buy us time until we get a new trade agreement. She paused and thought for a moment. While the high priest had bet everything on this agreement, there was zero chance of it still happening. But the concessions should give them enough time to come up with a new solution. That wasn't for her to decide. But there was something else she'd need to deal with. There would of course still be the problem of the princess snooping around. And now that our scapegoat is gone, we can't just try and kill her again. But since we now know that she never planned to form a treaty with us, the best course of action would probably be to cut off contact with the Vannery after that. But we'd need to justify that somehow. We have to find a way to discredit her in front of the alliance, but her current behavior could help with that. Maybe. A knock on the door interrupted her train of thought. Yes, one of her servants entered. My lady, there is someone who wishes to speak with you, the smaller male announced. Oh, really? She asked sarcastically while fetching her translator. Do you also have any useful information? Like, maybe tell me who this someone is. It's not a Vannery. Alright, now we know who it is not. Can you now maybe tell me anything that will justify not firing you once we are back home? Name? Species? Rank, granted, knowing that this ominous visitor was no Vannery was actually quite the big deal. She wasn't aware of any other ambassadors on Homie, and negotiating with multiple people at once was considered bad manners. And the princess knew that. As such, the fact that another species was invited at the same time certainly was not nothing. But it didn't excuse her servant's incompetence. How did she hire someone who didn't even know how to announce someone? I deeply apologize, milady, but I don't know their species. And their name was too long, I can't remember it, huh? After some quick preparations to make herself presentable, Kikla ordered the servant to call her mysterious guest in. She was now getting really curious, because she was certain her servants knew all species in the alliance. Maybe one that the Tystri rarely had contact with? Her first thought would be the Crowell, with whom they had zero contact ever since they had stopped exporting metal. Meaning the still somewhat young male would have never seen one in his life. Still, she was fairly certain that to qualify to accompany an ambassador, a servant needed to know them regardless. And how bad was his memory to not recall a name, just because it was a bit longer? The door opened and someone entered. A someone who very distinctly was not a Crowell. The person was small, notably smaller than the male Tystri accompanying her, and only about half the height of Kikla. They had a frail frame and a pale appearance that lacked any form of scales, shell, or fur, bar a very large patch of silvery yellow hair on the top of their head. 2 arms and legs each, similar to her, but unlike the Tystri, thinner limbs and no tail. The 2 eyes were rather big, with an intricately patterned blue circle in the middle. Their clothes seemed to be close in style to what the Vannery had copied from the Moravi, supplemented with a pair of gloves and some strange plates that were strapped to her feet with a complex set of straps. There was no denying it, the person in front of her did not belong to any species in the alliance. And she was very obviously not a Karaska. But there were no known species, besides the Karaska, who weren't in the alliance. Which could only mean one thing. A new contact. Kikla desperately tried to stay calm. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She could not afford to screw this up. The unknown alien, despite their short height, had a strong presence and dignified demeanor. But there was also something else. Something that, deep down, irked some primal instinct in Kikla. But she couldn't really identify the feeling and chose to simply ignore it. The point was, her visitor was likely not just a messenger, but someone of influence. And while she wasn't prepared to host a foreign noble, she would not allow herself to let this chance slip by. I apologize for letting you wait. I am Kikla, representative of the Tystri. I would greet you in turn, but I hope you can forgive my incompetent servant for not being able to deliver your name. There is nothing to apologize for, I have taken no offense, an incredibly soft voice answered. I am well aware that my name can be confusing to those who are unfamiliar with the naming style of my people. While she had already assumed it, the response made it clear that she was talking to a noble. These speech patterns and the regal aura she was radiating weren't something found among commoners. As such, allow me to introduce myself. I am Nadine Valentina Esmeralda Anastasia von Claude of House Haydenfeld. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Lady Kikla. On second thought, I may have treated my servant too harshly. As I already stated, the alien continued, I completely understand that my name can be confusing to those not used to it. You are free to refer to me as Lady Nadine. Then why even have a name that long? Then I shall do exactly that. Allow me to once again welcome you in the name of the Tystri, Lady Nadine. May the light of the goddess shine upon you. I'm afraid I do not know of your people's dietary needs, but if there is still something I can offer you, please speak, that is fine. Some unpurified tap water will suffice. That wasn't the kind of answer Kikla had expected. And judging by his confused look, the same could be said for her servant. With a gesture that essentially said, "What are you waiting for?" she signaled him to follow the unusual request. She then led her guest to a pair of couches where they took seats across from each other. Lady Nadine was so short that, once she was fully seated, her feet no longer touched the ground. As she sat down, the furniture seemed to make some sound of exhaustion. Great, was she seriously given faulty products? She could only pray to be spared the embarrassment of having it break under her guest. Shortly after, the servant brought in her drink. Kikla observed her thoroughly. The noblewoman took a sip without any hesitation. And yet, her hand seemed to slightly shake when she put the water container on the table in front of her. Was she not immune to the calcium after all? But why order it then? It is a shame we couldn't meet on a better day, but I'm afraid the downpour won't stop anytime soon. Yes, I was informed about this world's seasons. But I don't mind, compared to the rain on my homeworld, this is but a light drizzle. Was she bragging? If not, Kikla didn't want to know what heavy rain looked on her world. But that at least meant she wasn't in a sour mood. To be completely honest, Kikla changed the topic. Meeting a newly contacted species is the last thing I expected from this visit. I am pleasantly surprised. Though I must ask, is there a reason why you haven't contacted the Taistri yet? None other than time, Lady Nadine assured her. We, the species human, contacted the Vanari purely by chance. We by no means plan to favor them over the other members of the alliance. Oh, I didn't mean to insinuate that. But I thank you regardless. I then understand that to be the reason for your visit. Indeed, Lady Nadine affirmed after taking another sip. Her hand was still shaking. I was meant to meet Her Highness today, but alas, the meeting got cancelled. Even worse, I wasn't even given a reason why. I see. I'm in the same situation, actually. But it is hard to be angry about that, considering it allowed for this meeting to happen. May I ask, are there other representatives of the humans on Homi? Just me, the alien noblewoman clarified. It is the first time my people meet extraterrestrial life, by the way. It is truly a joyous occasion. In all my 24 cycles, I never experienced anything close. Well, that was perfect. Since the Vanari weren't cutting a dash right now, this was her chance to win this new species over. Even if they later talked with the other species, the first impression always stuck. If this went well, the Taistri's trouble might be a thing of the past. Just as she finished her train of thought, she realized that Lady Nadine had just emptied her water container. She had really drunk all the water with everything in it. Is there an issue? Crap, she had been staring. Apologies, Lady Nadine. I was simply marveling how manifold life in the universe can be. Because of this, she asked while tapping her water container. Well, I agree. I too was surprised to hear that the Vanari remove all these precious nutrients from the water. What? Though I guess they aren't exactly nutrients to them, am I right? Something in her tone had changed. Truly a strange whim of evolution for a planet to bring forth a species that can't drink its own water. Sure, not all water on my planet is drinkable either, but this is really something else. I mean, just grabbing the wrong water once and ending up hospitalized, if not worse. Just imagine, being locked in your room, laying on the floor, alone, after having poisoned yourself with what was meant to be a harmless drink brought to you by your trusted servant. Wouldn't that be a terrifying thought? Kikla felt as if her heart skipped a beat. Why yeah, she answered after a way too long pause. I apologize, my description might have been a bit graphic. Oh, by the way, while you of course brought some of your own servants, wouldn't common courtesy dictate to also give you some? Are the Vanari really that negligent towards their guests? And no, I was given one. But she seems to have disappeared, and someone like that gets hired by the palace? The alien noblewoman shook her head. That kind of carelessness is borderline criminal. I totally agree. But, while I am grateful for your visit, I am sure that you still have duties to attend which I don't wish to keep you from. Yes, you are right. I hope we can speak again though. I'm sure we will. As the visitor left, Kikla deflated. With shaking hands, she took off her translator. She knows. I don't know how much, but she knows. With all due respect, milady, Kilo chimed in, I think that sounds a bit paranoid. She slowly turned her head toward her handyman. You're not the one who thinks here, I am. You are the one who gets stuff done when I need you to. She stood up. I have lived longer than you ever will. I've been a politician all my life. I know how to pick up verbal cues. You heard how old she is. While I don't know how long humans live exactly, a noble with that amount of life experience doesn't say those things by accident. Even the water. This wasn't a visit to establish relationships. This was a threat. She doesn't want partners, she wants puppets, but, even if she has a suspicion, there is nothing that could lead back to us. Our plan, you absolute idiot. Proof is only an issue within the alliance, it means nothing to her. Didn't you hear what she said? She is the only representative of her species on the planet. During a first contact. Do you have any idea what that means on how much trust she has among her people? She might even be the right hand of their queen or king. She doesn't need proof. If she tells them what she thinks of us, that'll kill any chance of a relationship with them. Imagine them joining the alliance, and we're the only ones not profiting from it. Our people would be done for, spent. She slumped back into her seat. I understand your point, milady. However, if she were to die on Homie, while being a guest to the Vannery, things would look different, right? Kikla thought for a while before answering. Would she really order another death? Well, she had already done it once. She did what she had for her people, all she could hope for was for the goddess to acknowledge that. Let's say I agreed, how are we going to do this? None of your friends is in the palace. If they were, there wouldn't have been any need to go through all the trouble with the maid in the first place. We don't know her species, except for the fact that calcium doesn't kill her. And lastly, how do you plan to make sure it looks like a Vannery did it? If anything leads back to us, our people are doomed. Kilo nodded. Regarding your first concern, that is indeed difficult. I would need to call in almost every favor and threat I can. I wouldn't have any friends left on Homie. And I doubt I'll be able to make a usable amount of new ones. She shrugged. Your friends did a great service to us. But we were able to do it without them before. Besides, no matter how this goes, we'll have cut all ties with Homie anyway, so nothing lost there. Very well. About your second concern, there are poisons that can kill any species. No matter how different she is still organic. And I know a particularly deadly one that has no known antidote, and even better, it is available on this planet. It of course can't just be bought by anyone, but that's actually part of my plan.